Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Duck Zone. We are into the college football season. NFL season is 1 week away, but it is going to be a lot of football talk from here until February. I'm super excited. James, this is my favorite time of the year. Do you agree with that? Football season just has a different life, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I think football season's great. You got NFL, college, and can't forget about fantasy.
Oh, yeah, fantasy football just driving everything. As we're doing this right now, we are in a fantasy football draft, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah,
But we got,
dynasty, probably first dynasty for the both of us.
yeah, never done dynasty before. It's a little different. A lot of quarterbacks going off the board really fast. But yeah, let's jump right into. We're both recovering. We were at your bachelor party this past weekend. How are you feeling?
I finally, I finally felt alive this morning when I woke up. It was definitely like a 2 day hangover, and I don't know if you can see, but I'm like peeling all over my forehead. My nose is red and peeling. So, but hey, I'm alive, and no one went to prison.
That was the goal of the weekend. Have a lot of fun, and no one got into too much trouble. But yeah, we were all kindly reminded that we're in our 30s.
Yeah, yeah. There were times where I was drinking and I was like, "All right, I'm not at a U of A tailgate. Like, let's pump the brakes a bit."
Yeah, yeah. Good thing it was only 2 nights. If it was a third night, it would have been. It could have been real bad.
Someone would have died.
Someone could have died. But amongst the bachelor party, week zero started, and the big highlight of the weekend was, well, we got our first upset of the season in game one. Florida State going down to Georgia Tech over in Ireland. That was really the biggest noteworthy takeaway of week zero. Usually, week zero, there's not a whole lot of storylines. It's just exciting to be back. But Florida State losing was surprising. Um, Montana State beating New Mexico. For you, probably happy to see it. The aspect of they play Arizona this upcoming week.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
I know some of the Arizona analysts were talking about that in blogs I was reading, just as like kind of a precursor of what their offense is, what their defense is like, and kind of scouting them for this next week. But yeah, they didn't look great.
yeah, but outside of those things, any big takeaways for you? Anything jump out?
um, I mean, you mentioned Georgia Tech beating FSU. I'm curious to see how much that destroys FSU in the rankings. Just one, because
Mhm.
it's not, well, week one, but not week one, it's week zero. And
Yep.
now with the 12 playoff teams, I mean, like, last year that would have just killed FSU's opportunities in making it.
Yep.
If they can
Yep.
win out, are they someone who can still make it? I mean, so it's one of those things where like that wasn't that's a bad loss, but
Yeah.
maybe that won't kill them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a little bit more forgiving this year. I feel like teams like that, yeah, exactly what you just said. Last year, that loss happens. Everyone's already scratched off FSU. Now it's FSU runs the table. I mean, you win the ACC championship, you're in.
you're gonna make it.
Yeah.
Other than that, not really. I mean, we watched a little bit of that Hawaii game late night.
Yep.
Um, I feel like year over year they always have like a pretty good offense, and they play so late at night that they're just a better's dream. You can just
Yep.
make a bet on them, and depending where you are in the continental U.S., you're watching them anywhere from 4, 5, 6 hours, ahead of time. Not ahead of time, but
Yeah. Yeah.
time difference. So I don't know. Other than that, maybe it's kind of funny to see the whole Delaware State bus
Debacle.
scandal and missing the flight. So I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is. They already had to travel far. Now they
Yep.
have a bus debacle, miss their flight. I don't even know when they actually got in, but obviously it didn't matter. I think that game was pretty close at like around halftime ish, but then Hawaii kind of blew them out of the water after that. So,
Yeah, it was close, and then it got ugly pretty
but
quick.
no, I mean that's really it was almost kind of a wet the whistle type of weekend. It's like the
Yep.
hardcore football people, I'm sure we're stoked. But
Yep.
I don't want to say we're casual fans by any means. We love it, but it's not enough to I need to watch Hawaii Delaware State play by
Yeah.
play, minute by
Correct.
minute. So
Correct. Well, moving forward, we're going now into week 1. Thursday it kicks off. There's games on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. There's a game on Monday as well. What games are you most excited about? We'll just start there. What are you paying attention to? Yeah, floor is yours.
I guess I'll break it down by day, and we can kind of go
Mhm.
back and forth if that's easiest.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
I'm probably gonna step on your toes because I know we're gonna talk about the same game.
Yep.
But really, the only game I'm really looking at, well, I'll watch a little bit of. I think Kansas plays Lindenwood. What I don't even know what Lindenwood is, but
Hmm.
with Ashley being a Kansas fan, I'll probably tune in and watch
Yep.
them on a smaller screen because the game I will be watching is going to be NDSU at Colorado. So,
Yep.
which I know we talked about prior to recording, but not only is it, I think it's Colorado minus 10.
Yep.
If I could bet in South Dakota, well, I guess I can if I go to Deadwood.
Deadwood.
But if I could bet on my phone, I would be hammering not only the NDSU money line, but also to cover. Well, obviously, if I'm betting the money line, I would be betting the spread as well.
Spread.
But
Yeah.
NDSU, I think last year SDSU, South Dakota State, beat NDSU
Hmm.
in the semifinal to go to the championship. But it was the first time that NDSU hadn't won a title in FCS in like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, it's quite a while.
So I'm going to expect they're still going to be pretty good. And they're one of those teams who I think can knock off Colorado because I don't think Colorado's that good.
Yeah, I actually have that exact same upset. I think it's going to be the biggest upset of the weekend because of all the controversy around Dion and everything. I got North Dakota State winning that game.
I mean, their offense will be good, I think. You have Travis Hunter
Hmm.
and obviously Shador Sanders, but for all the hype they got last year, they finished with what, like 4 wins? So
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, Colorado's still in that kind of like, okay, prove it to me. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you have Dion. Okay, yeah, you have arguably the number one quarterback in the country going into next year's draft. You have the best two-way player in the game, which are we know that Travis Hunter's playing two ways this year again?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, their biggest problem is still going to be the fact that we know Colorado can score. The problem is how bad is the defense still going to be, and how bad is that O line going to be? I mean, they've got explosive players in the athletic positions, but their defense last year, it got to a spot in the Pac-12 where, by the way, because let me mention this, it's going to be very weird not seeing Pac-12.
Yeah, that's gonna be strange.
That's gonna be weird, but conversation for later on maybe. But in the Pac-12, everyone was scoring all over Colorado, and it was all those shootouts, and they were losing. And then the other problem was the O line; they could never run the ball. So when they got ahead, they could never control the clock because they could never pick up a first down on the ground.
Yeah, there were some games I was watching. Shador would just get destroyed sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he made it healthy through the season.
Just getting killed. But all right, let's move on to Saturday. What do you got?
First game of the day, I am going to be watching Clemson, Georgia. I don't think it's at Georgia. I think they're playing at the Falcon Stadium.
Okay.
But, I mean, that's a potential national
Playoff game.
championship preview. I'm not saying I'm picking Clemson to make the national championship, but, I mean, it's 14 versus 1.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson, I think, has a really good defense from what I've read about. Their offense is where people are kind of unsure.
Yep.
And then obviously Georgia being the number one team in the country, just right off the bat,
Yep.
it's always interesting to see because preseason rankings, I feel like, especially in college football, and I guess college basketball, you can say the same thing. They don't mean as much in college basketball. College football, with less games, means more. But it's so hard, I feel like, to just sometimes I wish there were no rankings and you didn't rank teams till after like week 1 or 2 because I mean they're gonna be good, but like if they lose a couple games, like early on. Like, say they lose 2 games in the first 5 or 6 weeks. I mean, that's not number one in the country worthy from the
Yeah.
preseason, but
Well, we got a good taste of that just this past weekend with FSU. They did not look like the 10th team in the country.
no. The first drive they did, they went down and scored
Yeah.
fast, and then they just looked inept after that. But
Correct. Yeah.
yeah, that's a game. That's one of the games I'm tuning into. I also want to see if Carson Beck really is this good because
Yep.
he's supposed to also be a top quarterback draftee in the next draft. So I personally didn't watch Georgia that much last year, so I kind of want to see what Carson Beck's all about.
Yeah. I just throw my 2 cents in. I got Georgia beating Clemson in that one, and just my feeling of it is I think Georgia wins by multiple touchdowns.
Yeah, I like Georgia by a touchdown or more.
Mhm. All right, what other games you got on the docket?
Let's see. I got South Dakota State at Oklahoma State. So as I mentioned before, South Dakota State won the national championship for the SCS last year. For the first time it had been them since, or NDSU had pretty much run that FCS for a while. So it was kind of cool seeing South Dakota State win it, especially because my fiance went there, so she was all pumped. Um, but they're always pretty good. I shouldn't say that. They're really good. They won a national
Yeah.
championship. And they're
Yeah.
playing Oklahoma State, who has arguably the best running back in the country. So to me, that's a storyline already right there. Defending national champions, going up against, I would say, a top 4, top 5 Big 12 team in Oklahoma State. And they're definitely just going to ride Ollie Gordon.
Yeah, I think if I remember right, they're 16 going into the season.
Okay.
So if I remember right, Oklahoma State I think it's 16. So
So they're top 5,
they're-
and they're definitely a top 5 Big 12 team. Where they're ranked preseason, I mean, they could be the second or third, I guess, but I have them finishing as a top 5. I should say that I have them finishing as a top 5 Big 12 team, and
yeah,
I mean their offense is kind of going to be on Ollie Gordon. So
yeah,
I think Oklahoma State wins that game handedly, but not like in blowout fashion. I think South Dakota State holds their own. I think it's one of those non-conference games in like an FBS versus an FCS team where it's a little more even than some of those like NAU versus
yeah.
whoever they're playing, and
Well,
I don't
well,
know.
the thing is, every single year you get to week 1, and there's always 1 or 2 FBS teams that come in, and they not only win the game, but they just maybe not on the scoreboard, but they just physically dominate the game. And it always happens. It's always shocking, and it's usually these Dakota schools come in and they just beat someone. I mean, it's already happened once. In week 0. I mean, the question is, who's it going to be this year, and who's going to go down? I mean, we're already saying North Dakota State's going to win. South Dakota State beating Oklahoma State could very well happen.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me or shock me, and it wouldn't be out of the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was last year. It was one of the Dakotas. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember they played Iowa, and this is when we discovered how bad Iowa was defense or offensively, and it was just punt the whole game.
Wasn't that wasn't it like 9-6 or 12-6 or something?
It was something super bad like that.
Yeah.
But it was the first indication of wow, Iowa's gonna be horrible at offense. But these week 1 games can end so weird. And like I know we're dissecting a lot of games right here, but like another good example was I think it was 2 years ago. We were actually watching this game together. Georgia played Oregon, and Georgia beat Oregon by 40. And we were both looking at each other saying, "Well, Oregon's going to be horrible." If I remember right, Oregon went on to win the Fiesta Bowl that year, or the Rose Bowl.
They probably ran the table and won out.
Yeah, it was like right after that. I was like, oh, well, Georgia was just insanely good, and Oregon just ran into a juggernaut week 1, and that was that. And Oregon was actually fine. Um, so it's like, yeah, especially with this playoff system now being a 12 team, it's going to be interesting to see how much this changes the college football game. I don't think the viewership will go down because people love their teams and stuff like that. But it's going to be interesting to see how even games are coached because going into this year, it was always do or die. You lose one game, you're probably out. A team like Georgia, I know we just talked Georgia Clemson. Georgia's probably sitting there saying, we could probably lose two and still get in. Probably.
There's a lot of teams that are going to be thinking that way, so that's why we had the drama of the BCS, then we had the drama of the college football playoff. You know that we're going to get 12 teams, and that 13th team is going to be like, hey, what about me? So
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
there's always just going to be something. It's just
Yeah.
always inevitable.
So I just want to say two more games on Saturday really quick and just kind of give them a slight mention. Um, I've got Miami beating Florida.
That was my next game.
Yeah, and
See how Cam Ward, the transfer from Washington State?
yeah,
I want to see how good he really is, especially with a bigger program, and then playing at the Swamp. I mean, that's
yep,
regardless of Florida being unranked, that's going to be a tough place to play, especially for his
correct.
first game at Miami. So,
Yeah,
yep, that's interesting. I
that was
can't,
interesting. I think Florida. Well, I think watching Florida all year, I think Florida is going to be the greatest 3-win football program of all time. I think they're going to get just that schedule is brutal. I think they're going to be good, but I think they're going to get just annihilated all year, just because of the schedule. And then the other game, which I'm sure was on your list too, I got Notre Dame going into College Station and beating Texas A&M. I know a lot of people have been saying Texas A&M is going to win that game. Not a lot of people are very high on Notre Dame this year, but I think Notre Dame is going to be a good 10-2 team this year, and I've got them winning the opener.
yeah, I put that game down too. I mean, Notre Dame is seventh.
Yep, 7 and A&M is 20.
They do have Riley Leonard, who I believe transferred in. Was he at Florida? Or was Riley Leonard? I can't think of where he transferred from. But new quarterback at Notre Dame because.
Duke. He came from Duke.
Duke, that's right. Um, but yeah, it's always interesting to see, especially now with the NIL and the amount of transfers you can do now and bring in as a team. Riley Leonard has some high or big shoes to fill coming in after what's his name? He had the hair, the big
Sam Hartman.
So yeah, that's definitely a game I have circled. A&M, I think they're bringing back most of their defense, so they have like a really good front seven.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how Notre Dame's offense will do up against them. But I like Notre Dame winning that game too, and yeah, that'll be a good game.
The story for me of A&M, and this feels like it's been the same story for the last 4 years now. A&M comes in every single year. They're saying, we're going to be the second best team in the SEC. This is our year. And every single year, by week 3 or 4, you're actually beginning to scratch your head and saying, oh my God, is this team making a bowl game?
Yeah, I don't think they've really been great since Johnny Football?
It's been a while. It's almost, I almost deem them now the most overhyped team every single year, because every single year we hear A&M's going to be great, A&M's going to be the secret playoff team that's going to slide in, and they end up winning. I think last year was as bad as 4 games, but they basically squeak into a bowl game.
Right. Oh, and no Joe Alt. That'll be interesting because I mean that guy.
Yeah.
It's like having 2 linemen. The guy was he was blocking 2 guys every play.
There's a reason why he went 5 overall in a pretty good draft class. So
Fresno State at Michigan, I have circled. Not particularly because I think it'll be a good game, I mean, it'll probably be a blowout,
Hmm.
but it's always interesting to see. Not I'm saying this like it happens a lot. It doesn't, but I'm
Yep.
interested to see a the reigning national champ with a new quarterback and a new coach,
Yep.
just to see like, okay, so what are they? Because that's basically, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that's like a brand new team when you have. I mean, I don't know. I guess Sharon Moore was with Harbaugh, but is he going to instill his own system? Did he
Yeah.
get taught a lot by Harbaugh? I don't know much about him, so I'm interested to see what he does in his first game with Michigan, and just I don't even know who the new quarterback in Michigan is. So I mean,
Yeah.
again, big shoes to fill in JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, it's going to be a brand new looking Michigan team, and it's one of those weird situations. Usually, we go into the new season, and whoever won the national championship before, they're always like, "Oh, this is the team to beat. This is like they're got the big X on their back." I don't feel that at all with Michigan.
No.
Like nobody's talking about Michigan, and I feel like there's even more debate of will Michigan make the playoffs than because I mean we're going to jump into this. Everyone that I've been paying attention to, Big Ten wise, has been either saying it's going to be Ohio State or it's going to be Oregon. I haven't heard, and even if you're not picking one of those two, I've heard Penn State before Michigan. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of analysts don't even have them in the top three.
Yeah, I know they're ranked ninth, but they better impress the committee because they have Texas week 2. So
Yeah,
they better show us something in week 1, like, okay, these guys really are the defending champs, regardless of a new quarterback and a new coach.
yeah,
Right now, you gotta. I don't know if they're traveling to Texas or if Texas comes to them, or maybe they're playing neutral. I don't know, but
yeah,
that's that monster matchup. So
yeah,
something we'll probably talk about week 2,
yep.
but we're not there yet. So I had them circled. Did you have anyone else? Any other games or?
The only other game I want to talk about, which I'll just briefly just mention, is actually on Sunday, and that's USC taking on LSU.
That was my next game.
Yeah, and I got LSU winning that one. I think USC. This is just my prediction. I think USC is going to have a rough year in the transition to the Big Ten. Starting out with LSU is a rough way to start, especially with them not going to California. I think that's played at Jerry Dome, if I remember right. Or is that
Well,
one happening in Vegas? That was in Vegas, isn't it?
I'd have to look. I was gonna say
Yeah.
both teams have a new quarterback, so that always makes the
Mm,
game a little more interesting. Um,
yeah. But I think LSU is going to win that game. I think it'll be competitive. But I think both of these schools are going to be, you know, very good 9, 8 win teams, but just the fact that they're living in the Big Ten SEC, they're going to be the fifth, sixth best team in their conference.
yeah, I'd agree with that. Uh, I'm going to be very interested in the USC's and the UCLA's of the world when they have to travel and play a. I don't know their schedules, but
Yeah,
go play a Rutgers in November, where these LA kids are used to 70s all day,
yeah,
every day, going up and down the West Coast in the Pac-12. So now you got to fly halfway across, or more than you got to fly literally across the country to
yeah,
play not great Big Ten teams, but it's almost like the NFL. It's like when these West Coast teams go and play, the Cardinals go and play the Panthers. They always
hmm
because the time difference screws them up. Uh, Not that you get jet lag by any means on those flights, but it just messes your circadian rhythm up, and then you're just
yeah.
out of your comfort zone. So, yeah,
And
I'm
it,
not really high on USC at all. Especially
and it,
they lost Caleb Williams. I mean, that's quite the loss.
and I am predicting that Washington. I'm going to throw UCLA out of this conversation because UCLA is. I don't think they'd be very good
No,
regardless.
they
But
should.
between the three of Washington, Oregon, USC, I'm predicting one of these teams is going to go into an Illinois or an Indiana or a Rutgers or a Maryland, be favored by double digits, and just look bad the whole game and lose. I'm
Yeah.
predicting it's going to happen at some point during the season. They're just going to go somewhere that they're not used to. And I think the team it's going to happen to is USC. Because USC's been able to play games. I mean, for some reason, it's just that uniform. They go. Think of when they went to Utah the last 3, 4, or 5 years, and that's not terribly cold. But they'd play Utah at night and they'd fall apart.
There's a crazy statistic about if you play Utah during the day or if you play
That,
Utah at night.
yeah, it's
And
night and day. Yeah,
so, yeah, that game, yeah, USC LSU, I think it'll still be a decent game just because, again, both teams have new quarterbacks. So
yeah.
we'll see what those offenses really are like. And the last game I circled, obviously I have to circle it because it's my alma mater, but New Mexico at University of Arizona. Um, like we mentioned earlier in the podcast, New Mexico does not look good. We actually took one of their running backs. He's a transfer. I think he's going to be our backup because our starting
Mm-hmm.
running back is from Ole Miss transfer. But I'm high on Arizona for the first time, probably since Nick Foles was at Arizona. I just think that Fafita is arguably a top 10 quarterback in college
The
football.
country. Yep.
Maybe I'm a little bit of a homer and biased, but I think Teteroa McMillan is the best wide receiver in the country. Watch his, if you don't know who he is, or not you, but if you don't know who he is, look up his highlights. He's absolutely insane. And he's 6'5". He's like a tight end. He's fast. I think he runs like a 4.4, 4.5. I mean, like, I don't know. I'm really high on us, which then means we're probably going to be really bad because whenever we have expectations, we do bad. Whenever we don't have expectations, we do good. So, but I'm not too worried about that. I think we're favored by like 31. But
Yep.
we're on ESPN. It's a late night game for me here in South Dakota. I think it's like 9:30 my time, but I'll be watching that. And I think U of A. I think we're gonna have a good year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they're going to be good. So, well, moving forward, big picture. Who do you got? You want to just go conference by conference? Who we have winning each conference?
Yeah, you go
Okay.
first, and then I'll just go. I'll just go after you.
All right. Well, so ACC, I actually got Miami.
I have Miami as well. I think
Yeah,
Cam Ward is the real deal. Dual threat quarterback, which I think means so much more in college than the NFL. So I think the U is back.
I think they're going to be good this year. Uh, I'm also throwing just side note. I think Clemson makes the playoff.
Okay.
Um, Big 12. I got Utah.
Uh, yeah, this was tough for me. I ended up going with a little bit of a homer pick. I have Arizona. We'll know if that's going to happen very early on. We play Kansas State week 3, and it's not a conference game, so it doesn't hurt our conference record if we lose that game. But with K State being one of the favorites, along with Utah, I think that'll give us a it'll show us what this Arizona team really is, and that's still a big win if we win at Kansas State. So, but I'm a believer. I'm a believer in Fafita. I'm a believer in McMillan, T Mac, and we are running back Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, who let me actually he is the New Mexico transfer. He came to us, then he went to Ole Miss, then he came back to us because of like some weird, I don't know. It was a very odd thing, but he had a really good year in New Mexico last year. So not only do they suck now, they lost their best player. So
That's how it goes as a mid major.
yeah,
So, I also just adding into that. So I'm telling you, Utah. I actually don't think any other Big 12 team is going to make it to the playoff. I think this conference eats itself alive. I think you're going to have.
that very well could be.
I think you're going to have 5 teams that have 9 wins or more, but I think Utah's the only one that gets out. Big 10. I went homer pick. I'm taking Oregon.
I have Oregon too. I think I saw Dylan Gabriel play in person last year at the Oklahoma Kansas game, which Kansas won, by the way. But Dylan Gabriel impressed the hell out of me. He's a lefty, which always makes it a little more fun. But I think he kind of falls into that Oregon mold, what it seems to have been. I mean, even prior to NIL, I remember there was a Eastern Washington kid who transferred to Oregon who was a really good quarterback. And
Yep.
then over the, obviously the most recent being Bo Nix, I think Dylan Gabriel goes in and Oregon doesn't miss a beat.
Yep. I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be really good, really tough to beat. They've kind of given that identity of this. They are running an SEC program in the Northwest. They are loaded with talent, and they are very physical. And it's going to be very interesting to see. They're the one team coming from the Pac-12 that already has a East Coast defense, which is weird.
Yeah,
So
they're a good team, and
yeah.
they're minus maybe Ohio State.
Hmm.
They should be a shoe in for the Big
Yeah.
Ten.
So yeah, Big Ten. I've got three other teams making the playoffs. Ohio State, Oregon. Something's gonna have to go really wrong for one of those teams not to get in. So yeah, Oregon, Ohio State. I got Penn State getting in. I got Michigan sneaking in as well. Closing it out, SEC. I got Georgia.
I also have Georgia. I mean, they're number one in the country for a reason. I know I had mentioned that I would like to see something proven, and sometimes rankings are tough to determine going into the season, but from everything that I've read and all the players that they have returning, I don't see, and their coach, having Kirby Smart helps too.
Mhm.
But you already have a Heisman favorite in Carson Beck. Their defense is elite.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can't see anyone else. I mean, and Alabama's got a new coach coming from Washington, so yeah, I think it's Georgia. Georgia's the team to beat.
Yeah, I think Alabama actually takes a step back. I don't even have Alabama making the playoff. I got Texas and I got Ole Miss.
Even didn't Texas lose like two of their running backs?
Yeah, but I think from the quarterback situation, they're just going to be so good.
Yeah,
So
Quinn Ewers is like a top three quarterback in the country. So
yeah, I mean
Texas,
they're good. They're in that same boat where they're just reloading.
yeah. Well, because two of their
So
guys, I know obviously two of their receivers went first round,
yeah, they're
maybe
just
first and early second. I can't remember now, but
and I mean they're going into the season ranked four, behind Georgia. I mean they're also gonna. It's that whole fact of you're gonna start seeing them moving to the SEC. You're gonna start seeing teams that you've never seen before.
they're
So
also going to get that East Coast bias from the media now that they're in the SEC.
yeah,
I
so
mean,
they're gonna get
Texas already has a presence. They have their own network. They
yeah,
are the University of Texas.
yeah.
But I bet we start seeing them even more in the media, especially if they're good.
Yeah, and I think when they knew that they made the move, they knew what they were doing. Like the one that I circle and say, this is going to be rough is Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma struggles in the SEC. I think Texas excels in the SEC.
Yeah,
So
Oklahoma could be in for a rough year.
yeah, and then the only other thing to add, I think Notre Dame makes the playoff. That's the only thing I got to add on that. Um, what is your national championship pick? And then we'll wrap up this episode.
So I have Georgia over Oregon.
I have Oregon over Georgia.
If
So
both teams make it there, we might have to make a little wager on the game.
yeah, if that happens, that would be really. We'll definitely flash this back to that happening. So, but well, it's going to be exciting week one. I'm really excited. I'll be watching a lot of football from here on out until February. James, anything you want to add in before we launch off this episode?
Just go Cats, bear down.
All right, let's do it. Guys, enjoy week one of college football. Thank you for listening to this point. Subscribe away. And until next time, see y'all later.